What are you supposed to do if you feel sad for no reason? The truth is, there probably is a reason, but it's really hard to figure out what that reason is while you feel sad. This is a question that's actually kind of important to me because when I was younger, I used to feel really sad very frequently, a lot of the time. I was sort of struggling with chronic bouts of sadness from probably my late teens through my mid-20s. I didn't really think it was going to get better. I read a lot of stuff about how if you were chronically depressed, especially starting as a teen, you were likely to be dealing with that your whole life. Probably one of the worst things you could tell a depressed 25-year-old. I just want to say I'm in my late 30s now. I'm 37, and I really have not had depression since I was 30. I think part of the reason why, for me and for a lot of people, why we do struggle with this ongoing depression is that people give us bad advice around it. I should say I was not clinically diagnosed as depressed. I also wasn't seeing a therapist at the time. Therapists since then have said you were probably clinically depressed. So I think I was, but I wasn't diagnosed in the moment. The one thing that was really lucky for me that happened to me in my mid-20s, I read a book called The Mindful Way Through Depression. It totally changed how I related to being depressed. I actually went back through my Kindle version of the book and read through some of my highlights. With the benefit of hindsight now, I can see how this shift in mindset really changed things for me. I started feeling depressed as a teenager, I would say from 20 to 25. It got progressively worse, leading to suicidal ideations when I was around 25. I also read this book, and then after reading this book and changing a few things, I went from being basically suicidal to very sad. And then from around 25 to 30, I slowly got less and less depressed. And then around 30, I didn't really struggle with depression anymore. Now I'm in my late 30s. It hasn't really come back for me. And I think that this shift in mindset really helped. And so anyway, I wanted to go back and talk about a few of the highlights, the early aha moments for me in this book. The first one is when we're starting to feel depressed, nothing we do seems to help because the usual problem-solving way, trying to fix what is wrong with us, just digs us in deeper. This was a really important one for me. I was a very rational person. I was a programmer. I was very used to solving problems rationally. If it comes to something like a piece of code, analyzing a piece of code for where the flaws and mistakes is a very good strategy with great results. But when it came to me analyzing myself for where the flaws or the broken bits were, it was really depressing, and it would make me feel even more sad. This is kind of how my cycle might go, is, wow, I'm feeling really sad today. What's wrong with me? Why am I sad? No one else seems to be sad. I used to cry in the bathroom at work sometimes. So I'd be like, why am I crying in the bathroom at work? What is wrong with me? And then I would think of a list of things wrong with me. Maybe I'm mentally unstable. Maybe I'm not intelligent enough to do my job. And then I would feel even worse because I had just had all of these really depressing thoughts. Problem solving that came very naturally to me just really was not a good way to start trying to solve being depressed. It kind of raises the question, like, what should we be doing? And this is the next quote, and it says, "It is actually okay to stop trying to solve the problem of feeling depressed. In fact, it is wise because our habitual ways of solving problems almost invariably wind up making things worse." What do you do if you feel depressed? It is actually might be better to do nothing than it might be to try to figure out why you're depressed. This is so not how I had been taught to think about things. Like, you have to be working, you have to problem solve, you always have to be a little busy bee. But I did start doing that just because I was desperate. What would happen is, instead of going down these spirals, I'm sad, what is wrong with me, why am I crying in the bathroom, I would start saying to myself, I'm sad, it's okay to be sad, I'm sad right now. And I think what that did is it didn't make me unsad, but it got me to the point that I could stop my sadness from escalating. And then I could just stay at the same level of sadness instead of the sadness getting worse. Maybe that doesn't seem like a big accomplishment. I think it made a very big difference for me. At that point, around 25, I had kind of figured out how to stop the spiral. And then around this time as well, I started meditating. I was in Cambridge at the time, so I went to the Cambridge Zen Center and learned about how to meditate. What that helped me with is it helped me not take my thoughts as seriously anymore. There's a final sort of line in this book. I highlighted it the first time, but it took me years to manifest it. The line was kind of saying, as we become more mindful, we come to realize that our thoughts are not facts. When I was really struggling with depression, if I thought a really violent or toxic or sad thought, I would believe that. But then what happened is, as I had more of a meditation practice, I began to see my brain, it just generates thoughts. I can't really stop it from generating those thoughts. But there's a magic thing that happens when you stop believing your thoughts. Thoughts are a bit like Tinkerbell. Like, you have to believe in them to give them their power. You can keep having the most horrible thoughts in the world, and if you don't believe them, they don't matter. And so that was basically for me what 25 through 30 looked like, as I still kept having these very critical, very negative self-talk in my head. With the help of my meditation practice, I just stopped believing them. It would be more like information. These negative thoughts are coming up. That probably means I'm sad now. I'm sad and my brain is generating sad thoughts. But I didn't actually believe the thoughts themselves. As I took that approach, the thoughts became less and less. And I never had this hope going into it. And I was just relieved to find out, hey, if I can just get a little distance between me and my thoughts, I feel a lot of relief. But actually what happened is, by the time I got to my 30s, I had far fewer of these negative thoughts than I had to begin with. The ones that were very disturbing to me, that were suicidal in nature, truthfully, I thought I was just going to have those my entire life, and I haven't had anything like that in years. That was an additional bonus step that I never even thought I would get to. It was enough to just not believe them, because as soon as I don't believe them, their power to make me sad went away. I don't want to imply that everyone's cause of depression is the same. I don't know whether this particular approach would work for you, but regardless of what you choose to do, I think that having this understanding can be very useful. No one had ever explained this to me, how being sad generates sad thoughts, which in turn make you more sad. You can break this cycle if you don't believe the sad thoughts. It is easier to stop believing the sad thoughts than it is to stop generating them. If I had any advice for someone being depressed, other than the typical sort of find a therapist advice, is find a way to stop believing the negative thoughts about yourself. If you stop believing them, they will probably eventually go away. But even if they don't, they will stop making you sad. If you need a way to stop believing them, looking into meditation or mindfulness can be a really good way. Maybe you even just want to check out this exact same book called The Mindful Way Through Depression. Put a link down below. That's all I got for today. Wish you luck continuing on your journey.